Here we're going to talk about lists. I'm going to go through some of these relatively quickly. I want to show you some of the things that we've talked about, but I'm going to do all of that very quickly, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the multi-level lists. So let's start with, we're on the Design tab, and we've talked about styles and themes. When we talk about a theme, we're talking about over here in the left-hand, furthest left-hand portion of this design ribbon, there's a drop down for themes, and we can choose amongst these themes, and then we can modify them and make them a new theme. And then what that theme does, it changes some things. It changes our style sets a little bit. It changes our color scheme a little bit. It changes our fonts, default fonts and such. So one of the things that you're instructed to do in the assignment for lists is to make the document look like the example. It does not have to be exact. I would like you to use be relatively close. For example, this is a heading 1. Go back to the home tab and you can see this is heading 1. So a couple things that are missing. I want this to be a little bigger. That's too big. I don't like the color of the font particularly. I'm going to change that to black. I'm also going to I want to center it, and I want to give it a border on the bottom, a paragraph border on the bottom. I want that to look like that, but I only want it on the bottom. I think I'll go with a 2 1/4. Okay, I'm not really fond of the color. See, change it here. I gotta apply that here. Let me do that. Bam. So now you can kind of get the idea. I'm actually not fond of this color now with that. So let me go with that one. So, and now I've made this is heading 1, right? So I want to make heading 1. That's what I want it to be by default. So I right click on heading 1 and I update heading to match selection. So now if I come down here and I make this heading 1, it looks the same, but I don't want it to be heading 1. We want also to use heading 2. And heading 2, we want that to be centered. Probably want that to be a little bigger. Whoops. Let me make that apply to the whole thing, and then I'm going to update heading 2. So now if I come and use heading 2, it makes it the same. So I will finish that down the road, but I wanted to show you a couple things. We want this to be a list, so I'm going to come here. We want this to be the check mark. We want these to use the Moroni that we've downloaded. Make sure you follow the directions. I want to define a new bullet. I'm going to use a picture from a file that is in my downloads folder right there. Okay. Now I'm down to the list. This is a multi-level list, and I'm going to define that right here. I'm going to define a new multi-level list because none of these default ones are going to match the requirements for this particular assignment. So I'm going to click there, and then I have an option to choose what each level will look like. And if you look at the example that you're given in the instructions for the assignment, you can see level 1 is a regular Arabic number, but without the parentheses. Couple cautions here. I'm going to change that. I'm going to take that parentheses out and put a period there. Do not take the 1 out. You see how it's shaded? That's a field. If you remove that, your bullets or your numbered list is not going to function properly. You're going to get, like if I backspaced and completely eliminated the 1 and then just typed a 1 back in there, every bullet on that level is going to have a 1. And that's not what we want. We want it to progress. So that's how we changed level 1. So we click here for level 2. Level 2 should be capitalized letter instead of a lowercase letter, and we don't want it to have the parentheses. We want it to be the period again. So when you do, if you do accidentally delete the one, the way you get that back is to come down here and choose one of these. And you can put that back in there. So level 3, we want to be Arabic numbers again, but with the parentheses. So I think level 3 is all we needed to worry about. So I'm going to click OK. This one, that is level 1. I'm going to scroll in, just zoom in just a little bit. So you can see that's level 1. A couple ways that you can, I want this all to be part of this list. Let's see how far down it goes to church organization. So all of this is going to be part of this custom list that I'm making. So now I'm going to choose this one that I'm currently using. This is the one I designed. Yep. So now there's a couple ways I can do this. This one is, so one of the things I did when I created that custom list is there's a couple ways I can do this, I think. I'm going to try a couple things out and I'll come back and let you know how it works out. All right, so what happened there is, I'm not sure why, but when I selected all of these and just tried to make them part of the current list, it wasn't applying it properly. So what I ultimately had to do was select all of these. I made them part of just a regular list, and then I was able to go back and make it part of this list. But then I had these duplicate numbers. And I know there's a way that I can quickly just continue the numbering, but instead I just hit the delete key there and hit enter, and then it continued the numbering the way I wanted it to. So that's what I had to do to get that fixed. So now let's see. Make sure I'm doing the right thing here. I am. January. All right, so I'm going to show you how to change the level of the list. This one I want to, I can do it a couple ways. I can come over here and hit tab, and it demotes it. It moves it to the right, moves it up to level 2. And if I hit tab again, it moves it to level 3. If I hit shift tab, it moves it back to level 1. So that's one way to move something up and down in the hierarchy on the list. Another way is up here, I can increase the indent. That moves it over. This one also needs to be level 2. These 3 need to be level 3, and so on. This line needs to go away. And then we've got level 2, level 2. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish this offline, and then I'll come back and show you the finished product. All right, I finished editing this to make it look the way it looked. I didn't change the multi-level list. It's still this one right here with the 1 period, A period, and then so Arabic numbers, capital letters, and then Arabic numbers with the parentheses instead of the period. So I used that throughout, promoted things or demoted things to where they needed to be to make it look the way it looked. I updated these heading styles to look the way they should look, or closer to. I don't want it to be exact, but I want you to do the things, use the tools that you've learned to try to make it look as close as you can. Don't spend a ton of time trying to make it look exact. That is not the point here. One of the things I wanted to point out here is the spacing between this, the heading style, and the previous list. The example document used spaces like their enter keys like this. I do not want you to use those if you can help it, and I know you can. So I want to show you how I get the spacing that I want here, and that is when I'm on this heading style, I can come up here to the paragraph group, expand it, And then I'm using the spacing here again. In this case, I want to change the spacing before. I changed it to 24, and that gave me the gap that I was looking for here instead of using the enter key. It gives you consistency throughout the document. It looks a lot cleaner, especially when I'm looking at it with the formatting turned on like this. And then this last group, I used the same list as the previous, this one up here, because it had the same requirements for the numbers and letters. So use the exact same one. And that is all there is to doing these lists.